The heart monitor beeped steadily while she tightened her gloves, already mid-movement, already focused. Christmas lights flickered weakly above the nurse's station, forgotten decorations from someone else's joy. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and burnt coffee, a scent she knew better than pine or cinnamon. She had chosen this shift weeks ago, without hesitation, without explanation to anyone. Working felt safer than sitting alone with memories she didn't trust anymore. She moved through the emergency room with practiced precision, her body remembering what her heart tried to forget. Every step echoed slightly, as if the building itself noticed how quiet the night had become. Outside, snow tapped softly against the windows, distant and irrelevant to her purpose. Inside, alarms, charts, and clipped voices gave her something solid to hold on to. Here, everything made sense in ways life outside never did. A nurse wished her Merry Christmas, softly, almost apologetically, before disappearing down the hall. She nodded, offering a small professional smile that never reached her eyes. The words felt foreign, like a language she once spoke fluently but had since forgotten. She told herself holidays were just dates on a calendar, nothing more. Still, something in her chest tightened when she heard the phrase again. She checked the patient board, scanning names without really seeing them. 50 years old, she thought briefly, then pushed the thought away. Age had never frightened her the way silence did. Silence left space for questions she had spent years outrunning. Work, at least, kept her moving forward without asking why. In the supply room, fluorescent lights hummed overhead as she washed her hands. She stared at her reflection in the metal dispenser, barely recognizing the woman looking back. There were lines now earned through long nights and longer sacrifices. She told herself they were signs of dedication, proof she had chosen wisely, but the reflection did not look convinced. A call crackled over the intercom, pulling her back into motion. She welcomed the interruption more than she should have. Emergencies were honest. They didn't pretend to be gentle. As she walked toward the sound, her pace quickened with relief. For now, the night demanded her attention, and that was enough. Yet beneath the calm efficiency, something unsettled had begun to stir. Not pain exactly, but a pressure she could no longer fully ignore. She had escaped home by coming here, or so she believed. Standing in the corridor, she wondered briefly what she was truly running from. The thought followed her down the hall, unanswered. The hallway stretched longer than usual, lined with closed doors and dimmed lights. Her footsteps echoed, each one louder than she expected in the quiet. She remembered other nights like this, other holidays spent inside these walls. Back then, she told herself it was temporary, just one more year. Somehow, one more year had become her life. A cart rolled past, decorated with a small tinsel garland taped to its side. The sight made her pause for half a second longer than necessary. She felt a strange mix of irritation and longing she couldn't name. Christmas had found its way in anyway, despite her careful avoidance. It lingered in corners, refusing to be ignored. She passed the window and caught sight of her own reflection again. This time, the glass showed more than her face. It showed exhaustion that sleep never seemed to cure. It showed discipline sharpened to the point of loneliness. She turned away before the image could say anything else. A memory surfaced without permission, sharp and sudden. A living room once filled with laughter, music playing too loud, hands passing dishes, voices overlapping, someone calling her name. She shook her head slightly, as if clearing fog. Memories had terrible timing, she thought. At a patient's door, she stopped and reviewed the chart carefully. Routine grounded her. Numbers steadier than emotions. She adjusted her posture, straightened her shoulders, reclaimed authority. Inside this role, she knew exactly who she was supposed to be. Outside of it, the answers were far less certain. The patient slept peacefully, unaware of the date or the decorations. She checked vitals, made quiet notes, kept her movements gentle. For a moment, she envied that unknowing rest. Sleep seemed like a mercy she had forgotten how to accept. She left the room feeling heavier than when she entered. As she returned to the hallway, the silence wrapped around her again. This time, it felt less neutral, more personal. The hospital was full, yet she had never felt more alone inside it. She told herself it was just fatigue talking, nothing more. Still, the echoes followed her, refusing to fade. She entered the break room hoping for noise, or at least distraction. Instead, she found empty chairs and a blinking vending machine light. A half-empty pot of coffee sat cold on the burner. Someone had left a paper plate with crumbs beside the sink, evidence that others had been here and moved on. She poured herself coffee anyway, grimacing at the bitterness. The taste matched her mood more than she liked to admit. She sat down slowly, the chair creaking beneath her weight. For the first time that night, she allowed herself to stop moving. The stillness felt dangerous. A small plastic Christmas tree stood in the corner, leaning slightly. Its lights flickered unevenly, as if unsure whether to stay on. She stared at it longer than necessary, strangely drawn to its persistence. Someone had taken time to decorate, even knowing most wouldn't notice. The thought unsettled her. She thought of her own home, dark and quiet at this hour. No lights in the window, no smell of food waiting. She had told herself she preferred it that way. Less mess, less disappointment, fewer reminders of what was missing. Now, the logic felt thin. Her phone lay face down on the table beside her hand. She knew there would be messages, or maybe just one. She didn't turn it over, afraid of what she might see. Avoidance had become second nature, almost a skill. But even skills had limits. She rubbed her temples, feeling the weight of years settle in. At 50, she had mastered saving others. She had not mastered staying present with herself. The realization arrived quietly, without drama, that somehow made it harder to ignore. When she stood up again, she felt less certain than before. The break had given her rest, but also clarity she hadn't asked for. She left the room knowing something inside had shifted. Not broken, but unsettled, like snow before a storm. The night was no longer just a shift. The call came suddenly, slicing through her thoughts without mercy. Her body responded before her mind fully caught up. Training took over, precise and relentless. This was where she excelled, where doubt had no place. She welcomed the familiar urgency. The patient arrived breathless and frightened, eyes wide with fear. She spoke calmly, firmly, anchoring the room with her presence. Hands moved quickly, orders given, machines adjusted. Everyone followed her lead without question. In this chaos, she was certain. As the situation stabilized, she caught the patient's gaze. There was gratitude there, but also something else. A reflection of vulnerability she recognized too well. For a brief moment, the professional distance wavered. She looked away, unsettled. When the room quieted again, adrenaline faded, leaving fatigue behind. She documented everything carefully, as she always did. Her hands trembled slightly, though she told herself it was normal. The emergency had passed, but something lingered. An echo she couldn't chart away. She stepped into the hallway, leaning briefly against the wall. Her breath came slower now, heavier. Saving lives had always been her justification. But standing there, she wondered what it had cost her. The question frightened her more than the emergency had. She straightened quickly, unwilling to indulge weakness. There were more patients, more responsibilities waiting. She reminded herself why she had chosen this night. To be useful, to be needed, to avoid feeling. Yet feeling had found her anyway. As she walked on, a quiet awareness followed her steps. This night was asking something of her she hadn't planned to give. She didn't know what the answer was yet. Only that pretending nothing was wrong no longer worked. And the clock was still moving forward. The digital clock at the nurse's station changed silently. 11:59 became 12 o'clock without ceremony. Somewhere outside, Christmas officially began. Inside the hospital, nothing visibly changed. And yet, everything felt different. She stood still for a moment longer than necessary. A nurse murmured Merry Christmas to no one in particular. Someone turned up the volume on a small radio playing carols. The sound felt both comforting and intrusive. She swallowed hard. This was the moment she had planned for. The moment she would be busy, protected, occupied. Instead, she felt exposed in a way she hadn't expected. The shield of work had thinned. Time had caught up with her. She thought of all the naté she had postponed, all the conversations she had delayed until later. Later had arrived without asking permission. Standing there, she realized how quiet her life had become. Not peaceful, just empty. Her phone vibrated softly in her pocket. She froze, knowing exactly what it might mean. For several seconds, she didn't move. Avoiding it had always been easier than answering, but the weight of the moment pressed in. She didn't check the screen yet. Instead, she looked around the station once more. At the tired faces, the blinking lights, the gentle chaos. This was where she had chosen to be. And still, something was missing. As midnight settled fully into the building, she exhaled slowly. The night was far from over, and so was her journey. She sensed that this Christmas would not pass quietly. Something had already begun to open inside her, and she wasn't sure she could close it again. She met him near the end of the hallway, a chart clutched to her chest as she reviewed his name. An elderly man, admitted days earlier, stable but forgotten by the rush of the season. The note said no visitors listed, no emergency contact answering calls. She paused before entering, feeling an unexpected hesitation settle in her chest. Something about the word alone lingered longer than it should have. Inside the room, the television played softly to no one in particular. Holiday music drifted through the air, thin and distorted by old speakers. The man looked at her with tired eyes that brightened slightly when she spoke. "Doctor," he said, as if the word itself was a gift. She smiled before realizing they talked longer than necessary, about simple things that didn't require fixing. He spoke of past holidays, of houses that once felt full. She listened, not interrupting, not redirecting the conversation. For once, she didn't rush toward solutions. Presence, she realized, could also be a form of care. He told her he didn't mind being there on Christmas. Hospitals, he said, were honest places. No pretending, no expectations, no forced cheer. The words landed softly but deeply. She felt seen in a way that unsettled her. As she checked his vitals, her movements slowed. Professional habit gave way to human awareness. She noticed how carefully he chose his words, how loneliness had taught him restraint. The room felt heavier than its size. When she turned to leave, he thanked her quietly. Not just for the medicine or the attention. For staying, he said. For listening. She nodded, unable to respond immediately. Her throat tightened without warning. Walking away, she realized something had shifted. Not dramatically, not all at once, but a crack had formed in the wall she relied on. She had come to avoid connection, and somehow, connection had found her first. At the nurse's station, laughter broke through the usual rhythm. A colleague zipped her coat, excitement soft but unmistakable in her eyes. She spoke of dinner waiting, of children still awake. The doctor listened, offering polite responses. Each word landed like a quiet comparison. "Drive safe," she said, meaning it sincerely. The colleague hesitated, then offered a hug. It was brief, awkward, unexpected. The warmth lingered longer than the contact itself. She felt something loosen, then ache. As the automatic doors closed behind her colleague, silence returned. The contrast was sharp, almost physical. One life paused for celebration. The other continued uninterrupted. She wondered when she had stopped leaving. She told herself she had chosen this path willingly. That sacrifice was part of the calling. That not everyone needed the same kind of life. The logic sounded familiar. Rehearsed, it no longer sounded convincing. Her chest tightened with a feeling she rarely allowed. Not jealousy exactly, but grief for an unlived version of herself. The one who left work behind sometimes, the one who arrived places instead of staying behind. She pushed the thought away too late. Work resumed, as it always did. Pages, charts, quiet conversations. Yet beneath the surface, something churned. The comparison had awakened a hunger she denied. And hunger, once named, doesn't disappear easily. She realized she had measured success carefully. Titles, years, achievements, neatly stacked. But no metric had prepared her for this emptiness. The station clock kept ticking, indifferent. And the night continued to ask its questions. Her phone vibrated while she reviewed lab results. The sound was soft, but unmistakable. She didn't need to look to know the name. Some connections announced themselves without words. Her hand hovered, uncertain. She turned the phone face down, as she had before, telling herself it wasn't the right time, that she was busy, responsible, needed. Avoidance wore the disguise of discipline. It always had. A memory surfaced, unwanted but persistent. A conversation cut short years earlier. Words swallowed instead of spoken. A distance that grew quietly, then all at once, she swallowed hard. The phone vibrated again, then went still. The silence afterward felt louder than the call. She continued working, movements efficient but hollow. Something inside her recoiled at the relief she felt. Relief, she knew, was not the same as peace. She imagined what might have been said. Nothing dramatic, perhaps just a greeting, or maybe an invitation she wasn't ready for. Hope, she realized, required participation. And she had been absent for a long time. Her reflection in a darkened screen caught her eye. A woman strong, capable, guarded, someone who knew how to save others, someone who still feared being seen. The recognition stung. She slipped the phone into her pocket again. The decision felt heavier than the device itself. Some choices are made through inaction. She knew this one would return. Unfinished things always do. The patient was younger than most she'd seen that night. Recovery had been uncertain, the outcome unclear. Now stable. He watched her enter with wet eyes. Emotion spilled over before words could contain it. She froze, unprepared. He thanked her repeatedly, voice trembling. Not just for treatment, but for staying calm, for explaining, for not leaving when things looked bad. "You gave me more time," he said softly. The words settled deep. She tried to redirect, to minimize her role. Doctors often did. Humility was safer. But he insisted, emotion refusing restraint. His gratitude felt raw, unfiltered. It pierced her practiced detachment. Something inside her gave way, not visibly, not dramatically, just a quiet collapse of defenses. She felt tears pressed behind her eyes. She blinked them back, breathing slowly. As she left the room, the hallway blurred briefly. She leaned against the wall, steadying herself. Saving lives had always been her purpose, but being felt by someone changed it. Purpose suddenly carried weight. She realized gratitude created connection, and connection demanded presence. It asked for vulnerability she had avoided. She felt both exposed and alive. The contradiction frightened her. Walking on, she understood something essential. Her work had meaning, yes, but meaning alone had not been enough. She had confused usefulness with belonging, and the difference now stood clearly before her. The hospital quieted briefly, as if catching its breath. She found herself alone at the station again, hands resting on the counter, shoulders heavy. The night pressed inward, reflective and slow. There was nowhere left to run. She asked the question she had buried for years. When had work become a hiding place? When had purpose replaced connection? The answer didn't arrive gently. It arrived honestly. She had chosen certainty over risk, control over vulnerability, being needed over being known. Each choice logical, defensible. Together, they built a wall. She saw now how carefully she maintained it. Extra shifts, longer hours, fewer invitations accepted. Silence disguised as independence. Strength mistaken for self-denial. The realization burned quietly. 50 years old, she stood at a crossroads unseen. Not dramatic, not announced, just a moment of inner reckoning. The kind that changes direction without spectacle. She felt both fear and relief. She didn't know what came next yet. Only that avoidance was no longer an option. The night had stripped that illusion away. Something inside her was waking up, and it refused to be ignored. As she straightened, renewed focus settled in. Not the old armor, but something softer, more open, more uncertain. The shift wasn't over, but neither was she. The memory returned without warning, not as an image, but as a weight she had carried for years. It surfaced while she reviewed a chart, the past slipping quietly into the present. A decision made quickly, justified logically, defended endlessly. One absence she had called temporary, one distance that became permanent. She remembered the moment she chose not to go, the call she delayed, the visit she postponed, the promise she reworded. There had been patience, responsibilities, a sense of urgency that felt righteous. She told herself there would be another chance. Time, she believed, would wait. But time never waited. It moved forward without consulting her intentions. Relationships thinned quietly, without confrontation. Love learned how to survive without her presence, and eventually, it learned how to live without her. She had replayed that choice countless times in quieter moments, usually late at night, when exhaustion weakened her defenses. She told herself forgiveness was unnecessary if she stayed busy enough. Regret could be managed through productivity. Or so she thought. Standing there now, she felt the truth press in. That the pain wasn't about the mistake alone. It was about refusing to grieve it properly. She had denied herself mourning in the name of strength, and the cost had been connection. Her breath caught slightly, steady but heavier. This time, she didn't push the feeling away. She allowed it to exist, uncomfortable and unresolved. Acknowledging it felt like reopening a wound, but also like cleaning it for the first time. She realized forgiveness was not an event. It was a process she had avoided starting, and this night, of all nights, demanded honesty. The past was no longer silent, and she was finally listening. She found herself sitting beside someone instead of standing over them. No clipboard, no instructions, no measured distance, just two people sharing the quiet between interruptions. The conversation unfolded slowly, without urgency. That alone felt unfamiliar. She spoke more than she intended to. About fatigue that sleep never touched, about years that passed without markers beyond promotions, about loneliness she had labeled independence. The words surprised her as much as her listener. There was no judgment in the response she received, only recognition, soft and steady. Someone nodded, not as a professional courtesy, but as understanding. The simplicity of it disarmed her. She hadn't realized how long it had been since she was heard. She noticed how her shoulders lowered as she spoke, how her voice softened when it wasn't performing competence. This was not confession, not collapse. It was release, measured and overdue. She felt lighter without knowing why. The conversation ended naturally, without resolution or promises. But something essential had occurred. She had shown herself without armor, and the world had not punished her for it. That realization stayed. As she stood again, she felt different in her body. Not stronger, not weaker. More present, more human. The white coat suddenly felt symbolic, a layer she no longer needed all the time. Walking away, she carried something new. Not answers, but permission. To speak honestly, to be imperfect, to exist beyond function. She began to notice what she had ignored all night. Small gestures tucked into corners of routine. A nurse adjusting a blanket with unusual tenderness. A quiet laugh shared near the medication cart. Care expressed without ceremony. The decorations she once dismissed now seemed deliberate. Not festive, but defiant. Proof that meaning could exist even here, even in exhaustion, even in grief. Christmas had not been absent after all. It had simply arrived differently. Not through gifts or gatherings, but through presence offered where it was least expected. She felt something shift in her understanding. Belonging was not limited to one place. She walked the halls with altered awareness, not scanning for tasks, but for people, for moments of connection hiding in plain sight. She responded slower, listened longer. The night felt fuller. She realized she had spent years believing joy required ideal conditions, the right timing, the right circumstances, the right people. Tonight contradicted that belief quietly. Joy appeared when attention did, when walls softened. Standing near a window, she watched snow fall steadily, each flake unremarkable alone. Together, they transformed the landscape. She felt the metaphor settle inside her. Change did not require drama. Christmas, she understood, was not something she had missed. It was something she had closed herself to. And tonight, something inside her reopened. Gently, cautiously, honestly, enough to let light in. Morning approached slowly, without announcement. The hospital lights remained the same, indifferent to time. Her shift neared its end, quietly significant. She felt the weight of decision gathering. Not urgent, but unavoidable. She thought of her house, still and waiting. The familiar return to silence. The comfort of routine without confrontation. It was the easier choice. She had made it many times before. But another option surfaced, fragile and uncertain. A call returned. A door knocked on, a step taken without knowing the response. It frightened her more than exhaustion ever had. She realized courage did not always roar. Sometimes it whispered insistently, asking to be acknowledged, asking to be trusted. She felt that whisper now. Gathering her things, she paused deliberately. This pause felt different from hesitation. It felt intentional. She did not rush past the feeling. She let it settle. For the first time in years, she did not default to safety. She chose openness instead. No guarantees, no rehearsed outcomes, just movement toward life, toward connection. As she stepped outside, cold air filling her lungs, she felt tired, yes, but also awake. The shift had ended. Something else had begun. She understood now that the night had never been about work, or avoidance, or even Christmas itself. It had been about permission to feel what she had postponed. The past remained unchanged, and always would. Mistakes did not vanish with insight. Loss did not reverse itself, but meaning could still be reclaimed. That truth felt solid beneath her feet. She no longer needed to punish herself through solitude, nor justify absence through usefulness. Her life did not require constant earning. She was allowed to exist beyond service. The thought brought quiet relief. The greatest gift of the night revealed itself slowly. Not wrapped, not announced. The ability to forgive herself without erasing responsibility. To hold regret without letting it define her. To move forward without denial. She carried this understanding gently, knowing it would need care. Change, she knew, was not instant, but intention mattered, and intention had been set. As the day unfolded, she felt something unfamiliar. Hope, not loud or dramatic, just steady, like a pulse returning to a long-numb limb. She welcomed it. That Christmas did not end with celebration. It ended with alignment, with a woman choosing to live as fully as she healed others. That was the gift she finally accepted, and it changed everything.